Hi, good afternoon, Pablo, and today we're going to be looking a little bit at this etude specifically. We're going to be chunking it up a little bit, so we're not going to be looking at the whole thing, but let's go ahead and take it a little bit at a time. Some things just to mention real quick, we are in E minor, so just be wary of your D sharps, same as E flat, and we'll make sure to be looking at that. So right there at the start of it, you see a E3 going up to a G3, and that already is going to cause some problems because we have to make sure that we're doing the half hole technique. So remember, when we're playing that E, we don't necessarily actually need to have our finger upon the whisper key. We can instead have our finger lifted off the whisper key, play the E as it is like this. So that way, when we go to the G, which is fingered the same way as our low G, and half hole it, it'll actually come out much more easily. So slowly, it'll look like this. Why don't you give it a shot yourself? A good start, make sure that when you're playing the bassoon, you don't want to pull the corners of your embouchure way too back, instead bringing them forward and trying to make a pillowy kind of feeling with your lips. So why don't you try that again. Now, would you say was that easier or more difficult?
It was more difficult.
So that will cause a little bit of difficulty in terms of playing, but what that does help is it does help to darken up the sound, and it's also going to help to be able to create the right airstream that's needed to produce a good characteristic sound. There, so that's just at the beginning there, from the E to the G. Going G to F sharp, remember how we finger F sharp? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to be pressing the key that's right above our F key down here, half hole. So that's going to sound like this. So why don't you give that a shot? One more key above that. Yes. So there at the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and play it, and I'm going to play a little bit slowly so that way we can kind of hear each pitch and make sure that everything is active. Watch my hands and notice that while I'm not pressing the whisper key pretty much for any of that, and I'm focusing mainly on just trying to make every note as smooth as I can. So 1, 2. That's the first measure. Right after the first measure, we actually need to go into our venting and flicking technique. This is why we're not going to be pressing down the whisper key, because it's actually going to make it a lot easier to be able to play that high C. Remember that high C is fingered the same way as we do our low C, 1, 2, 3. But instead of pressing the whisper key, you're actually going to be pressing this top key above your kitty key. So it's going to sound like this. Nothing should really change in terms of your embouchure and your air. All you're doing is you're pressing this down and making sure and trying to maintain that nice consistent stream of air. So why don't you go ahead and play that low C without the whisper key, and then add in your flicking key. Make sure to not be biting down on the reed when you're doing that. Yeah, like that. See? The good thing about this measure, though, is that we're going from a C to a B natural, which means that we can actually keep the venting key open, and we can just put down our fourth finger so that way we can get that the B natural. So just.
It's really flat.
flat, it might be because your reed is still being broken in, and it might need
Mm.
some time to be able to get nice and dark, okay?
Okay.
So don't stress about it too much. There, let's go ahead and just take it a little bit slow. And when we're doing this, keep thinking about the venting and about the half hole technique. Try to make everything as smooth as possible. We'll go a little bit slowly, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So
do I press the whisper key for the first E?
you do not need the whisper key for that beginning E.
Okay.
All you need to do is you just need to finger the E. So that way it's an easier time to be able to go between the notes. So I'm going to count you in, and we're going to take it nice and slow so that way we can make sure everything is even and everything's speaking properly, okay? So 1, 2, 3.
Sorry.
It's okay. Let's take it a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Yeah, just be careful on that. Try not to be blowing so much air that you're trying to shake up the instrument. The bassoon is a very, very fickle instrument. You don't need to be blowing air to the point of where it feels like it's going to pop. Because there's a big difference between and having a nice controlled sound. And because that was a very, very loud, very blasting sound. You want a nice controlled sound with nice controlled air. So think just a nice constant airstream. More along the lines of so try that, but let's do it a little bit slowly and thinking about that air, okay? 1, 2, 3. Remember to keep the venting key pressed down for that.
Okay, I thought it was just a vent on this.
Yeah. Okay. So next, the next measure, we're actually going to have to change the venting key to this one down here.
Mm-hmm.
When we're going from the B to the A natural, make sure to not so much as lift your finger. Just think like you're sliding it down off of this one, kind of like you're rolling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than just simply roll the thumb down, so that way it's an easier and smoother transition. So just try to isolate that.
Oh, I'm playing the wrong notes.
Yeah, it's better. There, in that third measure, where we're going to be going from the A to the G, we'd have to use the half hole technique again. So when you go to the G, you don't need to be pressing the whisper key. So all you have to do is you just need to lift your finger off the venting key, and then finger the G. So rather than all you really need to do is and you are moving a couple of fingers, but when you lift your finger off of this, kind of think of a rocking motion with your first finger here, so that way you get the half hole technique. So let's isolate that for a little bit, just the A to the G. Try it. If you get that like kind of growling subtone, what it usually is because our finger isn't properly coming off of that first tone hole. So you want to make sure that it's just a simple rocking motion rather than trying to lift it up or to make it super jank. All right. this, these are all notes that we know, except for that D sharp. As we know, D sharp is the same as E flat. So show me how you finger the E flat. 1, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have either 4 or 5 of down here, and the B flat, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe my pinky.
And Mr.
Where's the
And
next?
your pinky. Yeah. So when we're gonna go down to that, we have to think about that and make it so that way the motion is smooth rather than super slammed down on your fingers. Make sure that you have your fingers nice and close to the keys already, so that way you're not going rather just. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Make sure to keep your hands nice and close. So just try that from the E to the D sharp.
It's just really, really flat.
Mm-hmm. So now, after the D sharp comes an F sharp, which means that we have to think about what we're doing for there as well. We're using the half hole technique. So when you're going up to the F sharp, let's isolate that. So play a D sharp, and now play an F. Don't make the motion super sudden. Just make it nice and simple and relaxed. We'll keep working on it. Obviously, there are a lot of different technical things there at the beginning to discuss. We'll keep meeting up and we'll keep working on it so that way everything will come easier. But that's a good first start. All right.
Thanks, Mr. Gutierrez.